just trying to enjoy a phone has become such a spicy hot take. Ugh, I can already see the comments on this one. Okay, here, the Pixel 6a is something different. And I don't mean in any kind of grand philosophical way or market redefining aspirational kind of way, just in a nuts and bolts, how you use the phone kind of way. Internationally, this is going to look a lot more familiar, but here in North America, we don't get options like this as frequently. Phones are not just price tags. There's entry level and mid-range and flagship, which doesn't tell you anything about a phone. Now, I've been linking to this video. I don't know where it's going to pop up. I've been linking to this video for years talking about different types of phones: communicators, productivity phones, media phones, content creation, gaming phones. A phone is the most personal piece of technology that someone can own, and we should care that consumers are getting the right fit for their needs. Now, previous Pixel A series phones have been really traditional communicator mid-rangers. You put a nice mid-range chip in there, that's good, the camera's good, lifestyle features, there's a less expensive build material, and you get a pretty good screen. Save some cash and you get the benefit of better battery life. It's a winning consumer strategy in Android land. We know overwhelmingly Android consumers shop at around the $400 price tier, and Pixel A series owners always seem to enjoy their phones much more than tech reviewers. But here's where things get a little tricky. As we make this transition, the 6A changes up the recipe. Now we have a higher performance SoC inside. This is the geekery that often makes consumers' eyes glaze over when you try to describe it, but I don't make videos for average basic consumers. I make videos for enthusiasts, and the nuance matters. On the surface, this is a critical step for Google better controlling hardware and software. Google is no longer beholden to another chip maker for how long they can support their phones, and 5 years of security patches is a tremendous upgrade for mid-price Android land. And it's just nice. It's kind of like Apple. There really is no difference in operation or services from Google's cheapest phone to Google's most expensive phone. No other Android maker can make that claim, and in the past, people purchasing poorer person phones often had to suffer a noticeably poorer experience. But the Tensor chip is also different in real-world operation. This is not a one-to-one transition from the 5A, it's a significantly different balance of pros and cons. This is one of the most brutal price-to-performance phones the United States has ever seen. If all you've seen are tech reviewers writing off the Pixel 6 because of the Geekbench scores, you probably missed this chip is one of the fastest at chewing up photo and video data, especially when we're editing. The Tensor was designed to compete more against phones from 2021. I don't have any special insight. This is just my guess. But I really believe Google wanted the Pixel 6 to be the Pixel 5. And it just took a little longer to get the hardware right. We're all pretty confident that the Pixel 5 was just something of a placeholder phone, right? I mean, that makes sense to me. Tensor seems like it was built more to compete against Snapdragon 88s, but spent most of its life competing against phones from 2022. But when you give it compute tasks, it can often outperform phones using a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. At the time this video was shot, the Pixel 6a is now the absolute fastest phone I've ever clocked in editing single video clips. I know people like to shrug off video editing on a phone, but that's a hilariously stupid take. It's a dumb thing to ignore in a world where every site online is trying to copy TikTok. The 6A is one of the fastest phones of the year at audio editing, and there's not a single real-world test I can perform where a Galaxy S22 is able to beat this phone. If you're worried about the Tensor running warm, but think an $800 Galaxy will be better, then you really don't know what you think you know about technology. This should be exciting. There's a tier of device that is much more popular internationally. We lovingly refer to them as flagship killers. high performance, powerful phones that make compromises in other areas to include a top of the line chip. You could look at a Poco F4, an iQOO Neo 6, some of the Xiaomi, Vivo, Redmi options. We don't get options like that here. This is a different use case than the Pixel 5a. You can drive the 6a much more like a premium tiered device, but the 6a in my very early pre-release software testing does not get the same battery life as the 5a. But more aggressive use on the 5a, like trying to shoot 4K 60 frames per second video, is going to be much more of a struggle. In my temperature controlled office at around 78 degrees, the 5a was able to record about 16 minutes of 4K 60 before it overheated and shut the camera off. That's honestly not bad for a little mid-ranger chip. Recording 4K 60 frame per second video in a single clip, the 6a ran for 2 hours and 50 minutes before I ran out of battery and I got a low storage warning. 2 hours and 50 minutes, that's 10 times more footage in a single clip. I think we can call that progress over the 5a. As we've come to understand the lower cost tier, phones like the Galaxy A53, the 6a is not a traditional mid-ranger. The 6a is more in line with a flagship killer. It has its sights set on a more expensive tier of phones to compete with. One example, right off the top of my head, this fight works against an iPhone 13. The iPhone has wireless charging, has a more expensive back glass panel instead of the plastic here on the 6a, and it has a slightly larger main camera sensor. Google's $450 phone puts up a pretty solid fight against Apple's $800 phone. We can complain about things like a 60 hertz refresh rate display on a $450 phone, but it's fine on an $800 iPhone. This is gonna be fine for you too at a pretty significant cost savings. We need to talk about this stuff with more nuance in reviews. It's so tired. Tech commentary that is so shallow that it's now starting to misrepresent what these products can do. We need to review phones more like we review laptops and desktops. There's a huge variety of solutions for people's needs, and if you only listen to the top phone reviewers, you're probably not going to get the solution that's best for your needs and your budget. And if you're a viewer from a country that has more flagship killer competition, I'd love to hear in the comments what phone offers similar performance, that top tier SoC with guaranteed 5 years of support for less than what Google's charging. I really need some help on that one, and I think it would help illuminate what competition looks like in different regions. And before we totally close this video out, obviously there has been much gnashing of teeth over the fingerprint sensor on the 6a. I cannot replicate the issues that a handful of YouTube reviewers have been able to show. I have been talking to my buddy Lenny over at Purposely Pixel. He's one of the few people I've actually worked with who can demonstrate and has actually demonstrated what some of these issues might look like. They are not present on my phone, and I've gone through multiple iterations of different fingers scanned and different settings for my smart lock. This is not happening on my phone, just as we've seen a few other YouTube reviewers like Tech Valor and Tech Odyssey also not able to demonstrate this issue. The problem I have with our current tone and commentary isn't that it might not be an issue. There could be some phones affected by some kind of lax fingerprint scanning. The problem I have is drawing a conclusion on the phone in a pre-release state where it's not even running an up-to-date security patch and has not started shipping to consumers, as if this is a defined, widespread issue of a consumer-facing product. Tech reviewers are notorious for this really lazy game. They get a phone from a less popular manufacturer pre-release, and they judge it in a state that consumers will never be able to buy that phone in. And they are making declarative statements that this is the big problem and how can we trust it? And I'm really worried about making a purchasing recommendation. But the flip side of that, when more popular brands face some similar issues, they never get the same declarative, deal breaker, be afraid of this phone kinds of commentary unless they're literally exploding. From the Galaxy S10 through the Galaxy Note 20, we went through 2 whole generations of Samsung fingerprint sensors that we knew had some issues with security, issues with vulnerabilities, and were often easy to defeat. It's not hard finding a number of Samsung press releases and bug fixes and patch updates acknowledging this behavior. And it was never really completely fixed by Samsung. What got us over that hump was a totally new ultrasonic fingerprint sensor design from Qualcomm on the S21. Someone please link me in the comments from these YouTubers who are so critical and so worried and just so upset about the Pixel 6a. Where was their commentary on S10, Note 10, S20, Note 20? Did we ever see them make the same hard declarative, I'm worried about you buying this phone kind of statement about a much larger manufacturer? I'm not saying they didn't. I'd love for people to link me a clear standalone video where a YouTuber says, I don't know about Samsung. Or was it more likely that they put out videos, oh, but Samsung will fix it. You just gotta be patient. Just wait for the updates. So that's where we gotta leave this video off. We really don't have enough data, and we don't know if the security patching is going to rectify this issue that a few people are having with pre-release software. It is my feeling that on an optical in-display fingerprint sensor that's already performing better than my Pixel 6 Pro did after several updates, and that I cannot replicate this problem, I'm inclined to lean towards no. I don't believe this is going to be a widespread consumer security concern. We'll have to see, but apparently poor security was never a deal breaker on Samsung Galaxies. We're in such a unique window right here, especially if you really listen to your family and friends, what they say they need in their next phone. If the people around you are saying things like, I just need something basic, it takes good photos, I really want to focus on battery life, while we still have stock on shelves, the Pixel 5a, even with slightly less support time, getting fewer software updates, a little less of a support window, might end up being the better fit for their needs. But that person who is concerned about longer security patching, and they just want the peace of mind, they want the comfort of knowing that even when they don't spend premium tier cash, they're still going to be getting all the same features, all of the same software. They're not going to be left behind just because they didn't buy an expensive phone. The Pixel 6a seems like that's going to be a better fit for their needs. Just because these two phones launched at the same price doesn't mean they exactly fulfill the same audience needs. I have more to do with the Pixel 6a. We need to see how this thing really launches when it gets into consumers' hands after all of the pre-sales and all the pre-ordering. But I just got to leave off with that idea that this is a unique package for North America. We do not get a lot of options quite like this, and it's helping to kind of shake up my expectations for good mid-priced phones. Power and performance punching well above the price tag. As always, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, and subscribing to the channel. A huge thank you to all the people who have been supporting lately. It really means a lot. You're helping keep production rolling on this channel. If you're catching links in the descriptions, if you're hitting my home site, SomeGadgetGuy.com, buying some merch, or if you're joining the list of names scrolling by on your screen from my Patreon, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. I've been digging into my early thoughts, not just on the Pixel 6a, I've also been playing with the Xiaomi 12S Ultra. So we've been doing some showdowns between $1,300 phones and $450 phones, and I did a direct head-to-head video rendering test, and I wonder which phone came out on top. It's a mystery. But those folks on the list, they already know what's going on with smartphone performance. They're the coolest collection of tech pals on the internet, so I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Twitch, not so much on the Facebooks and the Instagrams, and I will catch you all on the next video.